Okay, Tammy, I have 7:02. We'll call the meeting to order. Thank you everybody for coming tonight. The other night, Monday night, we stayed after and discussed what it was that we were looking for and how we were going to disperse the grant money that we've got here. As a board, we've determined our first priority is to support Bakersfield first. Okay. Second criteria is to use these funds to support the taxpayers and or reduce the tax burden on the town of Bakersfield. Our third criteria, excuse me, is that if there were any monies, i.e. grants available that haven't been pursued, we're going to be looking for you to pursue those first and come back to us with another proposal. This is the first disbursement. I think even if everything was awarded, it wouldn't use all the monies. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to John, who is our ARPA coordinator, and we will go from there.
Thank you, Josh. So we're going to try to do this in alphabetical order as best I can from the organization's names. So congratulations if you put the word Bakersfield first. So we're going to start with Bakersfield Conservation Commission. Is someone here to represent the Conservation Commission? Please step up and turn on the mic. Thank you, ladies. So Conservation Commission is requesting approximately $25,000 to work on the restoration of the carriage house. Is that correct? One of the questions we had was revolving around, was there any attempt to get any of this done via grants and or fundraising?
That's up to you, yes.
The town owns it. You are our bosses. We've requested, if you are interested even, to repair it in many occasions and haven't had responses. This is an all-out desperate attempt to, should be looking at everybody, to get first whether you want to do this or not as our bosses.
Okay.
And we do have strong support from the community, we feel.
Yes, and we've looked into help with barns, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem that that qualifies as a barn. At least that was the last that I heard. So getting a grant for, barns is not going to work for this building. It's maybe an in-between place that you're not going to be able to have that much luck with grants, but we're going to try.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning. We're just trying to get this started, or we're going to tear it down, I think is probably the choices we've got right now.
I want to add, there was an attempt in 10 years ago, because there was a state engineer who came here and did a pretty complete study of the building at that time and made recommendations, which I have right here.
Alice, wasn't the building, oh, sorry. Wasn't the building cabled? Didn't somebody cable the
It was at
from side to side to keep it
Yeah.
from sprawling, spreading? Yeah, and that was an attempt at that. Was about 10 years ago.
yes, that was soon after this engineer had come.
Okay.
So if there's something out there, we will definitely pursue it, but it would be in addition to just the first phase, which is to
Yes.
stabilize that building. Which, we're hoping to do with
Yeah.
$25,000.
What's the use gonna be? What are you gonna use it for?
Well, there was a letter. I hope you all had a chance to read it. We basically are feeling it's for community use. We're hoping, we've had a lot of feedback from the community on the Facebook page with great ideas like summer markets. I'd like to see it also used to support cyclists coming through town as a place to stop off, hopefully get some water if they need it. If it's pouring rain, a place to shelter, because we're going to keep the bottom area for sheltering and for people to be able to use all the time during the nicer weather. We've also got the trail that people can use around there. We could have information in there for the people that want to do the trail hikes with maps and things. And I'd also like to see it used by the Historical Society to display some of the historical items, barn items and that sort of thing. My thought is we get them up high enough, which we could do in that building, so that people couldn't take them, but that we could have, you know, old pictures up on the walls and things like that.
It's an excellent example of a timber frame barn. And the interior is pretty much unfinished, so all of those old beams that were hewn by axes
With the bark still on
are
them.
very obvious, and push on that theme too.
Is this building a part or has been registered with the so it's not a historical building? Was there an attempt ever to register it as a historical building, and why was it denied?
I don't think that the pursuit was ever finished. That's why.
Yeah, I don't
But-
think it would be denied necessarily because it's pretty old. Did you ever get a date on that? I didn't look,
No,
but it's quite an old building, so it probably would qualify, but I think they just, to whatever pursuit they had to go through, they just never finished it. And we're not looking to restore the building, we're looking to renovate it. The difference being that we just want to stabilize the building so we can use it, not put it back to what it had been, you know, historically.
At many of our meetings that we've had, just as a select board, it's been brought up the amount of monies that are out there for grants right now, especially for restoration of old buildings. Maybe it's just me. This one just seems like it was kind of it just popped up type of deal. There was monies available, it popped up. I would want to see a little more research into what other monies are available.
You took the wrong people up here. I have no idea because I'm not really part of this conservation commission. But I know that they, you know, for 10 years have pursued things. I just can't tell you honestly what that would be. But I also think if we can show that you're trying to work on it, our chance of getting those grants would be higher.
We're in the process, the select board is in the process of hiring a grant writer. And that grant writer would certainly be available for projects like this.
we did look into recently, within the last 2 years, a grant that was being offered for barn work. But carriage barns didn't fit for some reason. It had to be housing some productive animals, I guess, or fowl,
So it may be a
something.
tricky category
So-
for us to get grants. You know, like I say, I have not been involved. I do know that they have actively looked for things and have come up with nothing so far, so. I'm hoping that if we can get a start and say, this is what we've got and this is what it can do in our community, then we might stand a better chance of getting a grant. But if it just sits like that, I'm not saying we really want this done.
Well, that's a good point, because one of the questions, that comes along with, grants and fundraising is apparently there's a lot of folks who have a wish list of potential uses for the buildings. One of the things with ARPA that we've been told time and time again is try to use the money in a matching grant format so that the money goes further. So I mean, you know, in that kind of mindset to a degree, and I don't speak for everyone here, but in that kind of mindset, you know, you're asking for $25,000, which, you know, is, you know, to some people, the world. And to other people, you know, it's like they're buying a candy bar with it. But, you know, I think this would be easier if there was some form of, you know, hey, we're gonna try to get half the money in fundraising, or we're going to try to get grants that'll equal up to part of that money, and we can match said grant. Facebook's a wonderful tool. Instagram's a wonderful tool. Twitter's a wonderful tool. Everybody has an opinion until they're asked to contribute and or contribute their time. And then all of a sudden it's a, you know, that post disappears off of the off of the list a lot of times. I'm sorry, I've seen it too many times. I've been part of too many groups and organizations. So I'm just saying that you know, in order to make every dollar count, if we really want to save this building and so many people want to see it, maybe we should do some kind of matching piece to it, as what has been told, how we stretch this dollar as it is.
May I ask a question? Do we have a vote of confidence from you people for our pursuits?
I have just one comment that I think you should consider too, and that is use your technical centers at either BFA or Enosburg to help you with finishing up this, because they love to take on old projects like this, bring their students up and do the work. I'm not sure how the money part of it plays out, but I would say pursue that as well and see if that may be another way to get some of the work done that would match towards any funds that you might receive.
People?
And I have to say, I believe that they did tap Enosburg to come and help put up a gazebo or some kind of shelter. It never worked out. Promises were made and they weren't kept, so.
Yeah.
Enosburg. What's that?
I think we may have a contact there that may be able to help us.
Perhaps.
So I don't know if we want to put to a vote for the Conservation Commission. Is there any other questions or, you know, statements, concerns on either side? Yeah, the idea is that we complete this tonight, this round.
Do you call for the vote as the?
No, you call for the vote. You're still the chair.
Wasn't sure.
I would like to put a caveat that if it, no matter which way the vote goes, we would ask that you do make some sort of attempt to acquire a grant. The town is more than willing to match any grants. Okay,
That's the first we've ever heard.
okay, the town is willing, if what we're looking for is a show that somebody out there, other than the deep pockets of the town of Bakersfield, is willing to put their money where their mouth is. I'm sorry to put it quite so bluntly, but we're looking for someone else to say, yeah, this is a worthwhile project. I think we'll put some money into it. We will match that out of the ARPA funds.
But you hold the cards because we were willing, that our treasurer, to hold the money. It isn't going to be in our account. So whatever we spend on this, if we had some, would be approved by you at that time.
I think what Lance is saying is if you go get grants and or have fundraising and get funds, that we'd be willing, so long as it's within, so long as we have ARPA money available and it's before the end of 2024 when we have to have it committed, we would, you know, that's what I was saying originally. I would propose that we match that funds, and it sounds like Lance is saying a similar thing, that, you know, it's, there's a lot of folks, you know, it's like, yep, I want to go do it. And, you know, it's a black hole sometimes. So that's what we're saying. If we can see some kind, you know, then we can go from there.
Okay, so I will call for a vote for the Bakersfield Conservation Committee for the sum of 25,000 even from the ARPA to be allocated to the Bakersfield Conservation Committee. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Yeah.
It is.
Can we put to a vote, Josh, that if they will match a grant, so long as there's funds available in the ARPA fund?
I don't think that happens here.
I think what would have to happen there, John, is that at the next disbursement meeting, they would come back hopefully with some grants.
For fundraising?
The letter could be the same, just with the addition of the grants that have been acquired. And it would be
Grants or donations.
more donations, correct?
I think the board is supporting. I think that's the word they're looking to have. the word
Yes,
grant.
I think the board supports it. I don't think the board is willing to be the sole funder at this point, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. The next one up is the Bakersfield Hearst House Stabilization Project. Good evening, Linda.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm fine. So last year Lyle had brought to you a list of materials and prices needed to stabilize the Hearst house.
Correct.
And he had a commitment from a couple of select board members for some timbers to be cut and sawed, but we haven't got those yet. But he did go in and
I will say this, he hasn't said he's ready for them yet. I had logs ready last fall and he didn't want them. So, and he didn't have a list of materials. This is the first list of materials that I have seen.
we're at the meeting.
I am speaking of the person who is supplying the logs.
Okay,
And the two people who offered to show up with sawmills
right,
know the logs are ready,
okay.
have not seen a list until this was submitted,
This was submitted last year.
not to
No.
us.
It was not,
Maybe it was submitted to.
It's probably through ARPA that didn't get through to them.
didn't get to the people he needed to get to.
Okay.
The people who are volunteering to help out.
Not gonna argue the point. Okay. So what this is a list of materials needed to stabilize the building.
Mhm.
And Lyle went in, and cut the floor out of the garage area to see what the damage was underneath. And the main beam for that building goes front to back and it's rotted and dropped. And a lot of the sills are rotted because the foundation is inadequate. It's broken, it's concrete, it's stones, it's cement blocks, and it's haphazard. Now, I did look into whether or not that was on the National Registry. It is not. So I contacted Vermont Historic Preservation, and they said that an application was submitted, but it wasn't complete. It needs to be completed. And now the forms have changed. And they recommended getting hold of a graduate student at UVM to help complete that. So that's on our to-do list. And then Mike Lanfear came today and looked at it, and Mike's health is not good enough so that he could do anything with this building at currently, in the next 2 or 3 months. What he's saying is that's a beautiful building. It's a historic building. It's in your village center. It deserves a foundation. And he's talking of 4-foot frost wall, going in there, putting the cribs in. I don't know if any of you saw what he did with the Historical Society with that addition. Put the cribs in, jacked it up, stabilized it, put a concrete foundation in, footings, 4 foot. His guesstimate is around that 25,000 mark, because he was looking at the barn over here with the conservation folks this morning too. And those buildings are about the same size. So we do have a group of volunteers ready to work on that building. And they would work with Mike, and Mike would work with them, saying this is what needs to be done: new sills, new floor joists, new center beam. But right now it's just a matter of stabilizing that building. And we'll see if we can get some grants.
I'm assuming that the floor repair and support beams would eventually sit in your vision, would eventually sit on top of the new foundation.
Yes,
Okay,
new sills.
I
everything
just
should be
want to
up-
make sure we're not
up out of the
having to
dirt.
redo things later.
No, and that was Mike's point too, is do it right so that in 10, 20 years, you're not right back where you are right now. Because it's basically in the dirt and it's wet. There's no
Yeah.
rain gutters on there. So when it rains, it goes right in and it splashes up on those sills. They're rotted. That front porch, the boards are rotted.
So hearing what you're saying,
Yes,
you have right now approximately 5,500 that you're asking for. You're saying it's gonna cost approximately 25,000 more to fix it right.
right. This is to stabilize and paint and
Well, to stabilize a building, then to jack it up is kind of counterproductive.
we gotta, if you.
I mean, if you're gonna
we-
replace the whole base.
Get that right now. And I can show you why it needs to be stabilized before they start jacking.
Okay, and it's not,
I believe what she's proposing is to ideally, it should be done all at once, but she's replacing the floor, which sits on piers instead of a foundation. So once the floor is reset on the piers,
okay,
you could crib it up, jack it up, and then dig and put a
Okay.
foundation
All
in,
right.
and then let it back down on a new foundation.
But what Mike's talking about is digging around it, putting the cribs up, lifting it.
Yep.
Doing the work from underneath.
Yep.
On the floor joists and everything. But right now that center wall in there has nothing under it to support it.
So this excess funds that are not being asked for here, where are you planning to get those funds?
We will try our best with grants. The Cemetery Commission does have money, but those monies are earmarked for stone repair, that old section with broken stones. And state law requires that we have a fence on all 4 sides of the cemetery. We do not have that. We're going to come to you and requested money for a fence. But the last estimate we got on fence and installed was like 150,000. So if you've got $150,000 left over when you get done everything,
Yeah.
keep us in mind.
So with Lyle, when he was here speaking to us
Yes.
as the board, and we were talking about the Hearst House, he said he had a number of things already donated. So
Yes.
what on this list is already, besides the hemlock, which we know is coming from Lance's property and Josh's mill, what else has been donated on here?
Labor.
Yes.
So it's just labor. The rest of this is physical. You don't have any of the hardware, any of the pressure treated.
No.
So, and the other thing I see, and maybe it's me, are the on Lance's hemlock, which even if you remove it, he's got 3 boards of hemlock at 15, which I get that number, but then he's got 17 boards at $18 for 55.20.
Yeah.
That's not right.
No.
My math says that's slightly off by
Yeah. Not
several
that far,
hundred.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's not right. And then, I mean, the 3 look right.
That's where his miscellaneous and overrun come in.
Then if those are donated, then
Yeah, that wouldn't be on there anyhow. So I don't know what's a part of this and what isn't.
Mhm.
Like, I'm trying to figure this out just by a quick look. It looks like the most expensive thing in all this is white paint.
that's kind of expensive paint.
Mhm.
Now, last time that Hearst house was painted, it was done as a senior project by Tad Stone with help from myself, Todd, son, Chad.
You didn't paint the backside.
I think.
When I was that age, nobody was looking at the backside.
Okay.
He's
got somebody that will volunteer the labor to do the painting, but they just need the paint. That I do know.
And what was the price on the
And he'd be here tonight, but he's in Florida.
Lyle is in Florida?
Lyle is in Florida.
Do you know when he got the pricing on this?
That would have been last year.
So this is in your current pricing?
See at the top where it says
Yeah.
2022.
So the correct number. So the correct number would be 574948.
assuming all the rest of the numbers are.
Assuming that you had to buy the hemlock, which is being donated.
So Lance, what's the cost less the donations?
What's the cost of donate? Well, if they want to pay me, they can pay me, I guess.
No, I'm saying,
That
what,
wasn't.
what's the total cost less those donations?
And he's got support beam up there, but he doesn't have price on that.
What's, the other question I have, and I guess Lyle's going to be the person who has to answer this, but what is miscellaneous expense? Because that doesn't explain anything.
Adjustment for bad math.
So I show a total of $4,343.31 without his 15% overrun.
Okay. And that could be also the change in pricing too, from last year to this year.
That does include the 1,000 miscellaneous expense, because it's otherwise it's 3343.
You said 43, John?
4343.31. That's including
That's-
a
Take that window repair out of there too, because we did that last year.
all right, hang on a minute. So this isn't really an updated sheet. This is a problem.
It's a little over 5,000.
It's under 5,000.
How much was the window?
Well, right now, the window is clear.
250.
Just over 5,000.
It's clear.
You take out the hemlock and a window, it's just barely over 5.
3.31 minus labor. 250.44
Is there labor here?
equals.
They didn't put any labor in, it's all donated.
All donated.
All right, so I show 4,092.87.
What else did you take
4,000.
out?
Well, I just added all the lines up, to be honest. I took out your hemlock and I took,
Okay.
that's including the $1,000 of miscellaneous that we don't know what that's for. I really think,
Screws, nails.
no, that's under hardware.
Okay. I'll tell
Um,
you what, $75
goes-
is not gonna cover screws and nails.
Yeah, I could tell you screws are a fortune. I built my deck, they're a fortune. I don't understand paint. He's way high on paint, in my opinion, and way low on screws.
We're nitpicking, we
So-
got a general number, we know the general idea.
General idea, and it would be, use it as needed.
Maybe we should have more homework done on it. I mean, because they don't know how they're gonna pay for the foundation yet. That kind of,
I'm not defending or speaking against, but the first step is you gotta straighten the building out before you can,
You gotta stabilize it, so it's.
so this is the first step. So whether you go further than that, you can put concrete piers or stone piers or whatever under it, and it's lasted, I don't know how many hundred years the way it is.
Not the way it is, but the way it was.
Way it slopes through. But,
So the one of the requests I had as ARPA administrator was, updated and accurate numbers. This is way off accurate. I mean, this isn't,
Yep, I apologize for that.
yeah.
I had to have something and that's
I
all I
know.
had to work with.
I'm not picking, I am picking, but I'm not picking like saying, but I think what really needs to happen, and this is a personal opinion.
Yeah.
Is go back, figure out what exactly you need and what's been donated and give us accurate numbers. I in good conscience can't make an estimate. I think I agree with Lance. His hardware for nuts, bolts and screws is way too low. And, I even think his joist hangers are way too low, having purchased a whole bunch for my deck. I think his pricing's way off. He should really work on it because I don't know what number is right here, but
Right.
One of them is
I'll
definitely
give
off.
this to the folks at Sticks and Stuff and let them figure it out.
Exactly. Remove the hemlock out of there, right? Remove your window out of there. Have them that's my opinion. I'm speaking for me. The board can speak, the rest of the board, but to me, I think you need to go fix it and resubmit it personally.
Just to keep us on the radar.
Right.
Okay.
And kind of echoing John a little bit here, but I think if our main goal is to repair and replace that building, not replace, to the correct, right, to stabilize it so that it can be repaired the right way. You're talking the floor repair section, which is all the stuff that between Lance, Mac and myself is gonna be, it's already sawn and will be sawn. So I think that is gonna be done
Okay.
to stiffen up that building so that it can be jacked. So I think if my opinion would be pretty much the same as the carriage house, get on those grants so that we can get the foundation underneath that. Come back, talk with Lance, myself and Mac, and we'll get those timbers and we can get this building stiffened up for basically the time that we're willing to put into it. And, like you said, maybe some miscellaneous stuff, some screws and stuff, but I don't think I don't think we're ready to approve this as a ARPA expenditure at this point.
Just keep us on the radar.
Okay.
Yep.
In order to make it official, though, we do have to vote on it. So calling for a vote in support of the Bakersfield Hearst House stabilization and repair submission. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Okay.
Linda,
As
do me a
written.
favor, as I said, go go to Sticks and Stuff and get a real good, get a good estimate for us.
And I'd like you folks to look at that building so that you know what it needs for timbers and stuff.
okay.
Okay.
Just a thought, revisit the porch. And the materials that you might want to use for that. Okay. Get some more accurate numbers
Mhm.
and. Give us, for those of us that are donating materials and time and labor. Give us a time frame.
Okay.
Okay, because we have no idea what your time frame is, and until I saw this, I had no idea what you needed for materials.
I thought you gave that to you the night you asked, you volunteered to cut a tree and Josh volunteered to saw it out. I thought you had.
No,
those numbers.
actually, Mac Newitt volunteered his mill as well.
Okay, good.
But no, we did not have this list.
Okay.
Looks like I'll have to saw out a couple more logs, but nothing that,
Some of the wind.
I've got most of them out already. They've been sitting on the concrete all winter.
Good, let them dry, right?
Yep.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Stay there.
Actually,
Stay there, green. Bakersfield Historical Society is requesting, if I'm correct, $3,208 $32,840.43. Before May 1st, if at all possible, to pay back the loan. We talked about this, we looked at this in depth, and we understand that you intend to front the remaining $5,000 until the tax is collected for 2023, in which case wherever you're getting those funds from, you'll reimburse them to pay off the loan in total. And we understand that you've already put out over $40,000 yourselves to repair the building up front. So to finish off the second 40,000, they fronted 40 and they took a loan out for 40, is my understanding. So, and just so that people understand, this fits into that whole thing of, you know, match a grant, right? I mean, it is in that box. I know that there were some intentions to fund it a different way and originally, and things went sideways and such.
Because of COVID.
Was there? I don't have much on this. Is there anything from the board?
We've had multiple meetings.
Well, yes.
We've had multiple meetings. One of the things that I said at the beginning, one of the criteria is to support the taxpayers or reduce the tax burden. When the loan was initially taken out, it was, the way it was explained to me is that it was to be paid back with fundraising and such. Now I know ARPA made that hard. No, COVID made that hard for a couple of years, and fundraising fell behind. And that's why you're here asking for this. The part that I'd have to say, like, my biggest concern, not concern. I don't want to, the issue I have is that instead of starting to fundraise or trying to come up with new ways to fundraise, it was simply, we're going to ask for $5,000 more from the taxpayers, which is what happened.
I don't recall that we ever said that we were gonna do that only by fundraising, because our past experience was fundraising was we were lucky to make money enough to pay for the fuel and insurance and the lights and, you know.
So that raises an even bigger question, is that we had a loan that was taken out with no other way to pay it back other than to come to the taxpayers for the money. Which seems, personal opinion, that should have been brought to the taxpayers prior to the work being done. Now,
You want to speak to that?
Well, we've never, we went to the town.
Trustees.
on it. Yeah.
They came to the town trustees. Was it 2 years ago? They came to the town trustees and requested $40,000 with a plan for payback, and they included the other 40,000, approximately 40,000, for a total of 80,000. They could not come up with the total of $80,000, and they were pursuing at that time grants, and they also said that they would. You were pursuing grants at the time, and they considered that they would be trying to fundraise to make payments. That was how it was presented to the Board of Trustees. And that was Tennyson Doan, Pat Evans, and myself.
Remember saying that.
Because our fundraising efforts in the past, you know, would be hard pressed to make it to 5,000.
Oh, it's an ambitious effort.
It's an ambitious effort. And
So-
we did get the $10,000 grant from the 1772 Foundation. But we had already fallen short on the one that would have helped us, and that would have been the All Broom grant. And
Okay.
that paperwork is in your package. We went for that before we ever went to the town, and that's the money.
Mhm.
We had the commitment from 1772 before that.
Can you speak to the, I know in the ARPA meetings,
Yes,
you had brought up on several occasions, the issues that you're having getting grants because you carry a loan. Can you speak to that for us, please?
now that we have the loan to get new grants, you can't get a grant on work that's already done. Okay, so, but to get new grants on other work that's needed, we can't do that with a loan because they're looking at our debt load, what our fundraising is, what our donations are, what our membership pays. And it doesn't come up to being able to handle, say, like the excess on a project after we get a grant. So
But it seems like if there was no plan for how you were gonna pay back the loan that you did take from the town. Other than,
okay, let me go back to when the structural engineers came. They couldn't come until after they'd been vaccinated. They couldn't come and meet with us. They were staying away. The governor had his, stay-at-home directive. We
Mhm.
couldn't get them. We've asked two different structural engineers. Preservation Trust of Vermont was working with us. They gave us grant money to pay for structural engineers, one totally, because when they did get vaccinated, we ended up with two engineers. So they paid for one and 50% of the other. We paid 50%. When those engineers came, we had already got estimates for what we thought needed to be done, was just the addition. Okay? When they got through with us, they said, you need to take care of that upper gable. Because you start jacking up that addition, you're gonna have your workers at risk with falling brick. So that added another 30,000 plus to our project right there. And so Gary showed the engineers what we had for estimates on the addition. And they said, if you can get that work done at that price, you better jump on it. Because in Chittenden County, that would cost you over $200,000.
$250,000.
250,000. We had an estimate from a gentleman over in Jeffersonville for 212,000 for the same work that Mike Lanphier and Richie Riley did. And their estimates at the time that we went for those first grants was just under 50,000 to do that whole thing. But then you add that upper gable and it put us in a bind. And it's like, do we wait until we got a $200,000 project? Or do we go this way and do the best we can with getting donations? We had one individual that had left town that gave us a $10,000 donation. We had another person in town that gave us 5,000 just so that we could make the payment to Richie Wright and we wouldn't default on his work.
For clarification, the 32,000 and change that you're requesting is to pay off
Balance. We've already,
the principal on the loan from the trustees of public funds.
yes,
That's correct.
and that
Okay.
goes back to.
Thank you. Okay.
And we paid the first year's payment last July. And that was principal and interest. That was part of your package.
Yep, right here.
5,000.
First payment of $4,917, $1,636.61 went to interest. $3,280.39 went to principal. And then a second payment was made. Or no, a second payment will be made.
I do think we have to consider that they did get some at least grant money beforehand.
They're going to give,
We did.
because
Yes.
we were approved for $10,000 at town meeting. We're gonna take 5,000 that we have in our checking account. Yeah, to make the loan for payment, for July. We have it there. So we're gonna take that 500, apply it towards that. So that brings it down to $32,840.43. That is May 1st. If it's paid a little bit extra, but a little bit before, then it would be a little bit less. It's interest only,
One question I think that came up the other night was, what would you be looking for if we pay off this loan? What are you gonna be looking for next year when you come to town meeting for those funds? Would you be looking for a lot or less or?
Is that extra 5,000 will go away,
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to put that on record as well.
Put another bug in my ear, he said, I wish the town would take as good care for the academy as you guys do of the historical society building.
Thank you.
So.
Another question that came up was, the reason you're looking for loans at this point is because there's another, section that needs to be repaired. Is that correct?
It's not as immediate as that addition was.
Okay.
The problem with that addition was the doors were binding in that back addition.
Yep.
The emergency exit, bathroom door, all that, and there was pulling away from the main building was a crack in the sheet rock
Yep.
in that back foyer.
I think one of the things that has been discussed is that if this was to be approved and this loan is paid off, before any more work is done to that building, either grants are secured so that it's not a burden of the town. Because as you pointed out, it's not a town building. You're not a municipality. So at this point, the taxpayers are paying for something that is not technically a municipality out of tax money. We put it forward for them. They voted on it. That's, they've agreed to do that. But just to be clear that it's not a municipality. So going forward, before any more work is done on that building, I think, the financial should be secured prior to any work being done.
Things that we are trying to do, is making sure that we get where it's either air conditioning or something, so we can use it in the summertime too. And also set it up so we can use it in the wintertime. Because there isn't any other places in Bakersfield where they can use,
It's for community use.
Right.
We've checked that out. We've checked out duct heat pumps and.
Yeah.
At the beginning of last year, we had all the ductwork cleaned, which makes it heat easier.
All right, does anybody have any other questions for them at this time? Okay, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of paying off the loan to the town for the Bakersfield Historical Society signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
Is Kathy still here? I didn't see her. Oh, Bakersfield Town's Clerk request for ARPA funds. Request is for $20,000 to cover the cost to start migrating our book restoration or our books and our records over electronically so that they are, no, it's not on, you have to turn them on. So that they have, so they're electronic and people can do that, the research remotely. And as I added that little caveat to the Historical Society, also a number of towns have used their ARPA funds to do this.
It was one of the things that ARPA could be used for when it came out. And I mean, we're in a technology driven era now, it's time to get up with the time. But we're not going remotely yet for people, it's just scanning documents. Someone's got to do it and get paid.
Right.
Down the road, at some point, they would be able to do this remotely. The town clerks wouldn't have to be open for them to look up the information. True?
From most of the researchers that come in here, they prefer to do it in person, because if I type in something wrong or Tammy types something in wrong, you don't find it on the computer remotely. So you can do a physical search and you find it. If there's another pandemic, it's a lot easier. I didn't close, so it wasn't really an issue here. You just had to make an appointment, but other towns closed right up. So.
Thank you.
Do you have, I know you have in here, you're requesting $20,000 and I know we've discussed it, but for the record, do you happen to know the estimated hours to scan in the historical books? And for those who don't know, it's like 70 years of records they have to scan. So, but minimal.
The guy that we got an estimate from, and I don't have it anymore, Tammy had it, and I know she gave it to the select board at one point. But he wanted what, $40,000 to do it? Yeah, and he was taking them out of here. Other than a book that's going someplace to be restored, I don't want my land records out of here. I'm in control of those.
Yeah, and as for someone who kind of helped with this a little bit, Nemrick, who's the site that would hold it, did voice their concerns about using those types of services because of issues that have come about with the records when they leave your possession. I'll help you with that part.
Well, COT Systems was the one that went around in 2020. And you had a certain time, because there was a grant the state did. But we had the 2020 primary and the 2020 general election, and we all know what a mess the state made of that. There was no time to try to get someone and do a grant for that. And then it ended up that system was hacked more than once.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Nemrick, to my knowledge, never has been.
Nemrick hasn't been hacked. Moving forward, you get all your records scanned in. How do you intend to A, pay the upkeep of this, and B, enter new records? Where are the funds coming from?
I have to record the documents anyway. So it would be just an extra step. But going backwards is gonna take time, and I can't go forward and go backwards at the same time.
But there is a yearly fee for the module. Is that coming from the book fund?
Yes. Assume it will support itself, but I've already seen a significant decline in recordings. Compared to last year at this time. Doesn't mean it won't pick up. Yeah, somebody's gonna sell something soon, I assume. Real estate's not going down, so, but with the interest rates higher, it's slowed a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, the intention is the book fund will always pay for this stuff. But if we deplete it now, it won't be able to pay for it, and then I have to ask the taxpayers for the money. Or I don't, you guys do.
Mm.
Because it's town
So-
stuff, not Kathy stuff.
How much is in the book fund right now? Just ballpark?
What was it? You have the Selectboard?
I don't. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how. I was just trying to figure out how far. How far will 20,000? So this would give us approximately 50,000 plus or minus to get this, get a significant chunk of this done.
Well, Chris,
I already started scanning the documents. It doesn't take long. But we got 79.
yeah, it's according to our last financial report for Monday. It's $28,728.40.
So the 50 plus or minus, yep. Okay,
But that goes towards, as far as I understand, maintaining and creating new books, the physical copy as well.
Purchase the book.
Mhm.
Oh, and they also restore our old ones. Most of them are done. Right now, there isn't any that have a need, but there's supposed to be money that stays there for that. I don't know how much that costs anymore. It was $1,000 or so the last time one was done, pre-COVID. Per book to restore one. But everything has gone up triple. So who knows what it costs now, but that's why I don't want to deplete the fund by having Tammy work extra hours, because I'm here Monday through Thursday. She can be here Monday through Thursday. Those 2 days she isn't my assistant, she will get paid from this money. Or 3 days if I have her doing it 3 days.
any other questions? Okay,
Can we, just in the request, I know, didn't quite talk about this portion, but can we do like we do with, when I do the electronics with an up to? And then they have to come back if it goes over?
so what you're saying is change it from requesting 20,000, you're saying request up to 20,000.
Right, and then if they need more because of an overage, they have to come back and request for more.
So are you giving us 20,000?
Well, I'm just-
More after that.
We're working on that right now.
Correct. That would, yes, I think that would be the same with anybody, whatever their request is, if it's passed.
No,
And-
they get what they.
Yeah.
They get what they get. I mean, if you, it isn't an ongoing line of credit here. You're given X number of dollars, that's your limit. You don't get to spend more. If you spend more, it's on your dime, right?
Yeah.
Right, well, that's why it's up to.
Some money in the account.
I'm just thinking if it goes long or it's more than we thought, you know,
Yeah.
then you'll have to come back for more.
Somebody else does.
Up to is a moot point, because 20 is a hard line, so if they come up,
What if it only takes 12,000? Then we can get 20,000. That's why I say up to.
Stay in the book fund.
Yes, it will always stay in. And it will be used for everything that comes out of there.
It was my question.
Okay, so is that the only question? Okay, this time I'll call for a vote to to award the Bakersfield Town Clerk for the Book Restoration Fund $20,000. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
The full name of that fund is supposed to be preservation and digitizing. It's even more words, but we shortened it.
Bakersfield Volunteer Fire Department, you're up. Come on down. You're the next contestant. Bakersfield Volunteer Fire Department is requesting $40,000 of the ARPA funds to help cover the replacement costs of a new emergency response vehicle, of which they are matching the $40,000.
Mr. Chairman, just to make a point of order, I will not be in this discussion, nor will I'll be abstaining from the vote due to my involvement with this organization.
You don't know, I said table it. I'm just kidding.
Todd, I believe you could be part of the discussion, but I will accept your abstaining from the vote. Thank you.
So our understanding is the current vehicle is a 2000 Ford Expedition that is, looks like it's not going to make it much longer due to normal Vermont wear and tear on a metal vehicle.
That's correct.
And you're seeking the funds now, and you're going to match the funds in order to either purchase a brand new emergency vehicle or an aluminum existing vehicle, as far as I understand, potentially from Johnson if that didn't fall through.
We have potentially found one that's gonna be coming up, used for sale. We would like something used. We haven't actually hammered down anything yet. This all kind of came to us a little quick.
Yeah.
And then I jumped into the ARPA to see if they could help, because it would reduce the tax burden to the town, fitting the final rule. We're looking at somewhere around $90,000 purchase price. This vehicle is going to serve the community both for fire and first response. So the first response aspect of things, our call numbers have actually increased above the fire department or fire calls. So this is going to house all of our first response equipment, AEDs, as well as a big thing that we're looking at is remote location access. We're getting all these camps and houses in places that didn't used to be 10 years ago. The current vehicle we have, we actually got free, donated to us, needed some work. I don't know, we put in $4 or $5 grand into it, and it served us well, very well. And we were told 12 to 24 months inspection will not occur. That was told to us a few months ago.
Right.
So it's kind of dropped in our lap a little bit quick. So the remaining funds, the BVFD will support via a loan, vehicle loan through, a local bank, or if we end up going through a dealer through them. The payments will be made through BVFD, our contract within the town.
You said you had a line on a vehicle. What? Are you looking for something similar to what you have now, or are you looking for?
Sure.
You mentioned remote, so I'm wondering, are you talking?
Occasionally, when I say occasionally, once every 18 months, we encounter a bad weather condition on a remote location access, such as ice or snow or
Mud.
shop, something like that, that the ambulance is not able to get to. And we have in the past used personal vehicles, extra cab trucks or something of that nature to get a patient into. We were kind of it's the same thing, where we can get a backboard in, transport the patient from the residence to the bottom of the driveway that the ambulance cannot get into. F-250, F-350. We looked a little bit into Tahoes, things like that. It's not brand specific. I just picked that up. It doesn't matter. Box on the back, rollouts. We can have some airbags in it. So it will serve as command vehicle on a fire scene. It will serve as fire apparatus storage. We want to utilize this in any way possible, every way possible. So it will roll to every call, regardless. We also want it user friendly, so everybody can drive it. It's simple, it's easy, it's a vehicle. It's just not going to be a large truck.
Right. And my understanding is the one that kind of just recently cropped up in the last couple of days has an aluminum undercarriage and everything else, which would obviously in Vermont help extend the life of the vehicle.
The vehicle we have done extensive work. We've had it undercoated, the frame mounts for the hold the radiator. We rebuilt them. Tires, brakes, things of that nature. We knew this was on our radar to replace. Not in the short term that it came up. And it is where this is kind of landed. So our hope and our intent is to secure a vehicle, hopefully have a new vehicle maybe by the end of the year. And this is, the beginning phases of where we're at. The ARPA money would act as a down payment.
Yeah.
So it would be utilized in that fashion. And who knows, there could be something that could come up, out of state a month and a half from now. We don't know.
I know for town equipment, the lead time on purchasing new is horrendous.
It's tough.
So if you could find something that's used from another department that's in good shape, you would be way ahead of the game.
The other thing is, cabin chassis on the 250s and 350s are a lot more readily available than the larger trucks. There is the option to go that route, put a box on it if need be, or the Tahoe Expeditions are a little more readily available. The larger the equipment, trucks of sort, if you will, are a little harder to get. The smaller stuff is becoming easier to get. So. In submitting the application, I took some time and dug into the final rule a little bit and then got really overwhelmed. But I did pick up the part about the matching funds, and that's why I felt it to put in for roughly 40–50% of it, which fit the need.
Yeah, I think in there, it really stresses like where it kind of breaks out. It's like, one of the bigger areas is between the maintaining of, the town roads and stuff like that, and then the emergency equipment and such. So it actually dials down into the emergency equipment.
Okay.
I mean, obviously during COVID,
Right.
you're the one running everybody around for the hospital, the reality unfortunately behind it. So.
Any other questions for Matt? Seeing none, I will call for a vote to allocate $40,000 of the ARPA money to assist in covering the replacement for a new emergency response vehicle for the Bakersfield Volunteer Fire Department. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And Todd is abstaining.
Thank you. Next is the Fairfield Community Center, who is requesting up to, because it's two separate kind of requests, one or the other, $29,000. I'm trying to find the actual amount. $29,742.
Can I get the originals for the fire department and the digitalization?
Can you say that? Yeah, that's
The originals.
Not say, I told you one of the originals. The maximum was $29,742. Because it's two different fundings, but it's one or the other they're asking for, and that's the higher the amounts. The other one is $24,532. Thank you for providing all the paperwork. We went through it. That's a lot of paperwork.
Was.
I appreciate it. Just some quick pieces here.
Can I say something?
Yes,
I have a condition. If you hear my voice quavering, it's because I have a central tremor. Eleanor Cattell had it. Oh, who's the famous actress? Anyway, that's what happened.
Katharine Hepburn. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why my voice sounds the way it does.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you. So one of the questions that came about was during COVID in 2020 and 2021, did the Fairfield Community Center apply for any PPP grants or loans?
Yes,
Were they given to you?
yes. Yep, we were able to keep some staff on board during that time. Yep.
The other thing, it really comes down to the P&Ls and looking at the P&L breakouts for you. In 2019, the organization, the nonprofit brought in $92,000+. After you removed your expenses in 2019, you had $9,201.48 left over. And then during 2020, the beginning of COVID and the lockdown period, you actually increased on the profit and went up to 133,000, which is $41,000 more than non-COVID. And after you took your expenditures out, you came up with $19,235.54 in profit.
Okay.
And I'm kind of drawing a line here. I apologize.
Here,
2021, tail end of COVID, you brought in $186,407.91.
right.
Of which, after removing your expenses for that year, you had $33,941.23. So the year prior to COVID, through COVID, the organization brought in $412,000,
Right.
roughly, a little bit less, at 412,315 and change. Your total after expenses, the total remaining for those 3 years was $62,378.25.
Okay, I
Um,
think I can explain.
Okay, please.
When we looked at the expenses, some of the things we have to set certain amounts of money aside
Mhm.
until we have completed grants.
Mhm.
And so that money hasn't been spent yet. It's come in, it's waiting to be spent.
Mhm.
So those, those aren't real profits. Those
Well,
are funds that are,
You're a nonprofit organization. You're not allowed to have profit, but you can reinvest it into your organization.
Right.
Yep. What he's trying to say, I think, is that you had more money taken in for each fiscal year than you actually utilized or needed.
we use, at the end, it ends up being used. We
By investing it into
very,
the community and your, so, yes.
we have a very, very strong grant writing group. And the town of Fairfield helps us also with grant writing. So we were able to pull in more funds. Some of them, we were able to pull in funds to build the pavilion outside that we can now use in inclement weather. The town of Fairfield gave us 59,000 towards the renovations that we were doing in the West Wing, where we had tiny little space to work with during COVID and realized we needed to open that area up. So yeah, we've made more money each year. We've brought in more funds every year, grant writing. Our donations improve a little bit each year, but it's grant writers and they're strong. They do a good job. So.
It's said in here, at one point, you were looking for part of the monies to be used to fix the childcare facility.
Yeah, there's not the child care. It's the section that we now provide senior meals. And also the after-school program uses part of that area. Part of this fund is to complete a kitchen that's in the newly renovated section. So that we have an option to rent that out to folks who don't need the whole big space that we have where we serve community meals. About a quarter to a third of the people who access our services live in Bakersfield. That number is on the back of the request. That's
118.
part of why we come to the town. And a lot of our volunteers come from Bakersfield. We're well supported by the folks and well used by the folks in Bakersfield.
Just, and I know a question that I don't exactly know the answer to, but Lance has the books. During the election, I know that the money's increased that was requested of us from prior years. Do you remember the amount
Yeah,
that was requested of the taxpayers?
4,000.
4,000, and you normally request
20. I mean,
2,000, so it
Yeah.
doubled because of the increase of Bakersfield residents.
And yes. Yeah, we've been, and again, town of Bakersfield, it's 15,000. So we're trying to even out somewhat our support from both towns.
Yeah, I was looking at that. You meant the town of Fairfield.
Fairfield,
It's okay. I just want to make sure because someone's going to go. Yes,
Yes.
okay,
sorry.
no problem.
And we're happy to take less than the 24. Whatever you're willing to give us, we'll go to the things that were identified in what we plan to do with the funds portion.
Mario, hearing that. As you were here when I read the opening statements there. As a board, one of the first things that our top priority is to make sure that we're helping Bakersfield and its tax dollars and its tax burden. Being in Fairfield and contributing through the taxes as the town has voted to do so. And looking at the profit and loss statements, I'm having a hard time with it. Personal opinion, personal statement. Is there any other comments or questions at this point?
I would just say I kind of, when I went through the profit and loss, I was really surprised to Josh's point. It took me back. I was like, wow, that's for a 501c3, that's a heck of a chunk of money to be carrying over. And I get what you're saying, but
That's
it's concerning.
the money is already obligated, even though it shows as a profit and loss. It's obligated funds.
Mhm.
It's not, you're not sitting pretty.
I get that.
Funds that have been dedicated to do certain purposes.
When I looked personally, when I looked through the request, and I don't want to speak for anyone else, I saw the donations that happened for the meals. People are paying donations or giving what they can for the meals. Right. I saw that the daycare makes money. It charges money. It's not a free service. Right.
We don't actually have daycare.
Mm.
We do
After
have
school
after
program.
Yes,
There is a cost to it. Right.
Yes.
So when I looked at all that, and then I was trying to figure out, okay, so is this, I'm trying to recoup lost funds. That's that's not lost funds. And then I looked at it another way, and this is me, myself, and I going through it. And I don't want to speak for anyone else. And I'm sure I'm putting a target on my head. But when I went through it, I said, what are the funds? If I'm not recouping here, I'm helping build a kitchen that's going to be used, maybe rented out, as you said, or whatever. So it's like, there are a lot of things. I'm not saying it's not worthy. I'm just saying that myself, I took pause when going through it. And it was a great report. You're very thorough, and I thank you for the time it took. I just took pause going through it, and it made me start looking at it deeper and deeper and scratching my head. That's all.
What I got from going through your report is I was impressed. It's a well-organized, well-managed organization, and you're doing well. And in this case, that's what's going against you. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm
I was gonna say, I would echo
Everything
what
they're saying.
you're saying.
I mean, just to say, the
And
food
I-
shop doesn't pay for itself. And that is one of the heaviest uses from Bakersfield.
Another thought is that this is just the first round.
Oh, food shelf.
So hang on to your application and possibly submit it again. With a few minor modifications and see what happens then. All right,
Yes, that's pretty clear. Now the vote's gonna go.
All right. Where were you finding that number? You said there was
Well,
two
can we go
numbers,
to the second page, because it's gonna be the 24,000.
24,500.
It's the
Okay.
24,000.
So I'll call for a vote to allocate $24,582 to the Fairfield Community Center for renovations. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Nay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you for
Yeah,
yours.
thank you.
Back to
For
the
yours.
board and see what we can come up with.
Thank you.
next.
Up next, HF Brigham Free Library, who's requesting a total of $7,500 to incorporate a replacement front door for $6,300 and approximately $1,200 in computer and IT equipment to replace aging / forced retirement by the individual who went over and said, turn this off immediately. I sit down to Josh, please.
I can have mine now.
So Nikki, thanks for coming in tonight. We just had a couple things. So first off, we really kind of reading it, who said that front door has to be a fire rated door?
So it has to be to code. And I apologize, I don't know what code is. This sort of quote we have came from a local builder who looked at it last June and gave us a quote for an exterior door that would meet building standards today, whatever it needed to be. And I apologize, I don't know what.
Yeah,
those-
it wouldn't have to be as a retired fire marshal, I can tell you,
That
it does
may
not
have
have to be a fire
that
rated
may have
door.
been mine.
What it has to do is because it's a historical building, it still has to maintain the historical look of the building.
Which is
Right.
part of the issue.
Right.
So it's a door that's original to the one that's there now is original to the building. So 1952-ish, I think. We're heating the outside every winter as the as the air goes flying out, heat goes flying out. So it's just a question of repair or replacing that door with one that is appropriate to the building and meets current code.
I might, we were discussing the historical nature of the door. I was like, I'd almost personally, this has nothing to do with ARPA. I'd like to keep the door and fix it so that it didn't let the heat out. I mean, that's me. That has nothing to do with ARPA. Well, it's shimming the door frame.
Josh, is that even?
It can, no, it can be done.
It shims,
Part of the issue is we've got those side lights
yeah,
and that single pane glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are just streaming with water in the wintertime.
yeah, it's
Um,
humidity.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's not double pane glass.
Which is creating part of the problem in our building with the whole floor and the carpet being
Right.
wet. And
Oh, that's what I said, I said personally.
we have been since we found out about the carpet. Yeah, that's been a newer thing, but
Yeah, that doesn't address the heat.
it doesn't address the heat loss, which
Not the
is,
heat loss, no.
So
I don't
one
even,
of the,
sorry, I never even thought about repairing the door. I don't.
For what reason?
one of the big things is that just cropped up that we're putting in for, because you're a municipal building,
Mhm.
is you may have heard about MERP or you may not have, which is the Municipal Energy Resiliency Program. And it's a grant program that is April 18th. There's a training for it. I'm attending it for our buildings in the town. I don't think it costs anything. Take a look. VLCT is putting it out. But we were talking about furnaces. We were talking about your door. Heck, what we actually said is have efficiency. I've got a call out to Efficiencies of Vermont that come out and go through the buildings to tell us what we can do to make them more energy efficient,
Basically do an energy audit of all the buildings we're
Yeah.
looking at.
including yours. Yeah, including yours, because you're a municipal building. So, I know what you're asking for. I'm just saying that April 18th is this program that's coming out that we may be able to address multiple things within the municipal building.
That would be, so are they coming here or is it something you're going to?
Well, I'm dialing in. It's a Zoom meeting. I can't remember, maybe $10. I don't-
Technically both.
Yeah. I'm
He's
dialing in.
going to a meeting to get the update on how this whole system works. And then we will bring in Efficiency Vermont for this building, both of the town garages and the library is our ideas.
Yeah, see if they can
That-
get us a.
That being said, what I would like to do is I would like to amend your proposal and have, do you have it in front of you there? Yeah. Section 1 be something that we look at through that grant system and Energy Efficiency Vermont, and adjust your number from 7,500 to the 1,200 for the new computer.
At worst case, if Efficiency Vermont doesn't think that we can get a grant and we are going to involve our grant writer in this, once Efficiency Vermont has given us an idea of what we need. If things don't work out, you can reapply for replacing the door on a second round for the grants. For the ARPA money, I'm sorry.
That makes sense.
Any other questions or comments? So I will propose the amended $1,200 be transferred or allocated to the HF Brigham Free Library for the purchase of a up-to-date computer, because one of our people trashed yours.
Say trash, shut it off.
Shut it, I killed, he killed it. So the $1,200 to replace the computer to an up-to-date system with the intentions of following through on the grant system and Energy Efficiency Vermont. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Yeah.
Any opposed?
Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you.
Next up, Lucas James Williams Memorial Youth Fund. Rosalie. Rosalie is requesting, she's a 501c3 who is requesting approximately just over $21,000 for lost fundraising monies during the 2020 and 2021 COVID season. The actual amount is $21,086. You're welcome. Rosalie, thanks for coming in. And thank you for submitting your paperwork, which we did review. I'm just looking for the questions. We went through your paperwork. We saw your 990s and what they submitted, as I explained to the team, you actually conferenced me in with the IRS. Thanks for that call. To describe what we were looking for. So,
Do I have?
oh, sorry. So
Friends in the IRS, is that what you're trying to say?
no, I'm just saying, thanks for having the IRS talk to me. Well, it made it easier, right?
Okay.
So when we went through the profit and loss statements and we went through everything, we saw you had a strong 2017. I handed Josh the paperwork. I'm sorry. We saw you had a strong 2017. Thank you. And then your 2018 dipped down by $8,000. Your 2019 dipped a further almost $7,000. But really with the profit and loss, what we looked at and we went through in 2021, you actually came out on the positive side in 2021. with, your $5,349.80 worth of fundraising or profit. And after your expenses, you still had $4,796.96. So then we dialed down and took a look deeper at 2020. And by the way, 2021, we saw most of that was because you had really no expenses because you had no events. You just had money coming in. In 2020, we saw a similar story, not on the positive side, a negative $260.81, but a similar story, right, where there was not a lot of expenses like they were in prior years. It was due to you didn't have events to put on, so you weren't putting the money out for the events. The one question we had was regarding supplies in the alphabetical order. It said you spent $2,546.77 in supplies. And the question kind of revolved around what kind of supplies were they? I mean, you cover food supplies above, which to me is perishable, but
What year are you talking about?
2020. It wasn't, the reason the question is being asked, because the way it's set up, you break out food supplies versus supplies, which makes it look like these were non-perishable. So they could be used in years. It wasn't like you lost $2,546.77. You just, you spent it and stored it for X time frame till it could be used.
Expenses can be anything from, let's see, 2020, next we had pavilion, the pavilion was put up in 2018,
Mm-hmm.
19, so 20 expenses would have been, oh my gosh, sorry.
That's
I had a
okay.
Bad headache about an hour ago.
And it's just in here as supplies too, if that helps anything.
What was that, John?
It's just in here as supplies. It's not in here as like utilities. Oops, sorry. It's just in here as supplies. So it's not in here as like taxes and licenses or utilities or anything like that. So that was the question.
Well, what we do, like for the haunted forest, we purchase a lot of items. We usually spend an average of about $2,000 every year. If we don't have an event, we still do that because we want to, we want to have things. Maintenance of the field, from mowing the lawns to, which is about 4 acres, 5 acres. We had to spend money because our lawnmower broke down. It was a riding lawnmower, 0 turn, so we had to have somebody do it. So that was an expense. There's all kinds of expenses. Oh God. Lights, I don't know if it's in there or not. Lights, we have 4 freezers and 5 refrigerators that run year round. So there's a, good light bill. Gosh.
That was the biggest item in 2020. Like I said, food supplies are broken out separate. It was 2,500.
Yeah.
Almost 2,550 to round up by
Okay.
$3. But on the profit and loss, that loss for 2020 was $260.81. Sorry. I don't know why I take them off. They're progressive. I just take this. So that was the question. Because what you're requesting, the almost 11 to 10,500 and change every for each year, you didn't have the expenditures for that time frame. You couldn't hold events, is what it really came down to in the questions, right? So if you didn't have events, you didn't have the need for the funds to expend for the events for that year, right? Because
Yeah, makes sense, yes.
I was just explaining the scenario. Any questions? Any other questions?
Sorry.
That's pretty much what we discussed the other night at the meeting for issues or concerns.
Do you have issues? I mean, I'm just asking.
No.
No.
No, that was what the meeting was for, was to look through them and bring up any of our issues and concerns. So we'd have the questions for tonight. And that was That was the one that we saw theirs. That there's no expenditures to account for the $21,000.
The 21,000.
Right.
21,086.
86,
Oh, that.
right, the request.
You're talking about 260.
Let me say I said that right, correct? Yeah, I thought so. Is there any other questions or comments? Either side? Okay. Call for a vote. For the town to allot the amount of $21,086 to the Lucas James Memorial Youth Fund LLC. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Just to note, the board does appreciate what you're doing over there.
I know that. I know that.
Mark LaRoche, you're up. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly.
Heard some of the things he's called.
Right, I think I'll work.
Wait, how do you pronounce it? As
Laura,
Rush, I apologize. Mark LaRoche is requesting $40,000 to help recover from the pandemic due to lost opportunity in business during the 2020 and 2021 COVID seasons. Correct? Mark, we went through your paperwork and I have a couple notes here, questions, but some of it revolves around it's missing documentation.
What is what you wanted for the taxes?
Right. We were looking for two things, the profit and loss statement and then your tax return, right, to justify it. The other thing is on your tax return, you did supply the 1065s, but there's things like C statement 1 and C statement 2 that we don't understand what's a part of statement 1 and statement 2, and you have that in 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022, as well as during line 16A, as well as you have other deductions for statement 2, it says, and depreciation. We're trying to figure out, especially since the depreciation definitely has increased since 2019. I'm assuming it's depreciation, at least I may be wrong. But the one, for instance, on line 20 in, let me just find the right year, in line 20, because I didn't write the year down like a nudge. In line 20 of, there it is, line 20 from 2020, you have other deductions, see statement 1, and it's for $26,047, but we have no idea what makes that up. 2020.
That was building expense when I was getting the kitchen set up.
Okay. And then you have line 16, you're claiming a depreciation on form 4562, which we don't have. So it makes it really difficult to really look at the total because it's just not here.
Yeah.
The supporting document isn't here to, yeah, and I apologize. I mean, but the documentation isn't here to justify, to figure out if this is justified or not. And that's my personal opinion, and I voiced that to the board originally. But just so you know, that was what I looked at. I'm like, I don't have enough information to make an accurate decision. Thank you.
That was that was the discussion that was had. I mean, we can sit here and reiterate it again and again, but that was the discussion. Yep. Unless there's any other questions or comments. None at this point. Okay, so we'll call for a vote for the town to allocate $40,000 to Mark and Janet LaRoche. Wow, he screwed me up. For all catering. I know, right? Jeez. Based on the information provided. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And opposed, nay.
Mark, get some more paperwork, profit and loss. And when you get those statements, make sure you include all the subtables.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Alright.
I'd encourage you to reapply it the next time. Just knowing now what's needed.
All right, thank you. So I don't see Mac here tonight. Represent the town for the equipment proposal, but the ARPA fund request is for $120,000 used as reimbursement for the grader that we purchased from the town of Johnson for the equipment fund.
How much was it? 120?
$120,000. Now, out of the equipment fund, we're looking at a wing that would not be a part of this. And
Approximately 30,000 more will be spent on the grader, purchasing a wing. This grader does not have a wing. We will be selling eventually the old grader, if we can get a decent price for it. And we are looking at purchasing out of our own town funds that have been saved other equipment. We haven't decided exactly which, but it looks like it probably will be a small to mid-size excavator so that we can respond to problems throughout the town in a more timely fashion. Right now, we have to rely on rented equipment, which as in the 2019 FEMA event, we get the short end of the stick on equipment. We were very lucky that we had some people in town that had equipment that allowed us to use it. Most of that equipment is not available anymore. We've lost John Gilmet, and Harmon Mayo doesn't have the equipment that he used to.
Any questions? Comments? Okay. Well,
We're doing just 120 now, right?
correct. So we will call, absolutely.
And a use that the ARPA funds have been put to buy equipment to the town.
Yes, in some cases, in local towns around us, the ARPA funds have been absorbed into the general funds. Not dispersed at all, used strictly for town. We've needed a grader for years. ARPA hasn't.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm just curious, why has it been hanging on for so long? Just the expense or?
A new grader?
I know, give me just 1 second, as my memory is coming back, and I know there was a time that they were talking about repairing the grader. Is that what happened?
Yes, we continually repaired the grader for, I've been on here for, I think this is 5 years. And one of the first years I was here, it was brought up, the grader, and one of our townsfolk stood in the back and said, you can still get parts for it. There's no need for it. That was true. And as many of, well, maybe many of you don't know, heavy equipment, parts, labor, and new equipment are almost non-existent at this point. We looked at trucks just to see what the time frame is, as is it Max truck? Is the next one? No, not Max.
Mark's.
Mark's truck is the next one to be replaced. So we started looking at, replacement cost. Had Mac make some phone calls, and even if we were to say we want one right now today, the best we could do is hope that it would be here in 2 years. Graders, we had Mac looking at all spectrums, used new parts for this one, as they've rebuilt the motor, I believe, a couple times now. It's served its purpose well for this town. I think it's time for it to retire. That's why we decided to go with that grader. But two of the three companies that offer heavy equipment graders in the style that we would need wouldn't call him back. And he was persistent. And when he did get through, they were like, "You're 3 to 5 years. We've got to deal with the here and now. So unless you're ordering one, yeah. There is an equipment fund. And that's where I believe half of this grader came from.
Yes.
And what we're looking to do is just replenish that equipment fund. Because if we don't replenish it with the ARPA money, that's taxes, that's more tax money that we're going to be asking for to replenish that equipment fund.
No, ARPA funds can be used for town and road equipment, repairing of the roads. As Josh said, it could all be moved within the general fund. So yes, we can utilize the funds. We utilize the funds to pay back the grant. No, that was the Historical Society talking
That's
about
the
grants.
Because they had already spent the money, the grant couldn't get approved.
And they couldn't get the work that was already done on the building. They couldn't get it under a new grant. It wouldn't fit in.
And other communities have used it to pay back loans such as this.
Yeah.
Or purchases such as this.
A brand new grader, not even considering the 3 to 5 year lead time, was what they started out about $300,000. We got offered this by the town of Johnson.
No.
Huh?
We were made aware that it was being posted. Yes.
Different terminology. We were made aware of this opportunity from the town of Johnson, and we felt that it would be foolish to pass it up. It's in immaculate condition. It's a nice grader.
And just and just so you're aware, we did bid the minimum bid. They send out a bid package. It's a sealed bid system, and they said bidding starts at 120. I submitted a bid for 120, and quite honestly, I did not think we would get it because of the shape that grader's in and the availability of them. So, any other questions from the floor? Okay. So, shall we transfer the amount of 120,000 to the new equipment fund to cover the purchase of the grader from the town of Johnson in the town of Bakersfield? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
So that was our final and 10th and final request, Josh, for funds. As Josh said, we will have in the future another round. We have to have the money committed not paid out, but committed by 2024. So we have a little over a year and a half to get the rest of the funds committed, whatever that amounts may be. We could absorb them into the general fund and or other avenues.
With my, I have. With my quick hand scratchings here as I was going. We started the night with approximately $389,000. And with the allocation so far, we have a remainder of $175,000. Approximately 176 because there was some plus and I'm a hair below, so 175, so.
Yes.
Is this grant person available immediately?
Yes, fortunately enough, the one that we said we would give them a shot with the municipal energy piece. They live in Bakersfield. They are actually a resident, so it's not even like we're going outside our own town. We're going to give them a shot and see how they do. Alex is his name. And we'll see how he does with this. And if it's good, we'll move forward with it. And we have to pay him, so it'll probably come out of some funds, but.
And just to step on you real quick here, Don. We can make his information available to anybody that is interested in hiring a grant writer for their own entity, whether it be the Historical Society, Conservation Commission. I'm sure he would be perfectly fine with us doing that. I mean, that's more work for him, and he does have a fee, and that would be up to you to negotiate with him. But yes, we are willing to share that information if you would like it.
Question. Been in two buildings today, one of which I was quite astounded with the fact that the stairs are pulled away from the walls, and I was warned not to climb up there. And my feeling is we've got children going over into these buildings. If there were to be, God forbid, some kind of a accident, who's liable?
Who owns the building? What building are we talking about?
The cemetery. We're talking about the Bakersfield Conservation. Those parents that I know of, do you have insurance? The Hearst house is long. The town has insurance. Long. I know it, but I.
So.
Not
Oh, okay.
What about?
So I can answer that again from the state perspective, having been involved in several buildings like that. It's the owner's responsibility to mark that building no entry. And have some way to prevent people from entering. If that's boarding it up, it's whatever it happens. Otherwise, that entity is liable for anybody that gets hurt in there. So if you're allowing people, right, so if it's wide open, you're gonna, you're liable. So,
That's why Brigham is the way it is now.
rope it
You
off.
should probably rope it off.
And
Wanna
the,
get-
and the signage. Just warning, do not enter, building is not safe.
Been like that for 20 years. I'm not saying it should have happened.
We
probably played in it. I was gonna say, we probably played in it, but
No, that's the town's problem. I really doubt people do. The bell?
the bell,
Or is that cemetery?
it depends. If it's a problem, if it's not a problem, the cemetery usually does.
Is the park part of where the bell is, or is that the cemetery? Will somebody clarify? That is the town pond. That's a park. Town is, okay, that's not part of the cemetery. It's not, there's no cemetery plots in that area. How far up does it go? To the big marble, to the road.
Are you asking where the cemetery goes to?
How far up does the cemetery come to the pond?
I think the cemetery ends at the large maples right here. The line of large maples that.
So the rest of it is.
In,
That first line of gravestones.
yeah,
Okay, That's where the map starts.
Yeah, what's on the other side next to Matt's house?
That is the Conservation Committee's.
That's your bottom line.
And it's Bakersfield.
Conservation. That's the town park. No, this is the town park. Yeah, that's town park. And that is St. Brooks.
Is there any other questions about ARPA? Any other questions about ARPA?
The Freedom Academy. Still on hold with doing something else with it. Is that a contender as a plan B for ARPA funds? If that.
I don't think that ARPA fund would cover the first 10 bricks.
I,
For the first 10 room. Lance, watch Lance, here we go.
All I can say is the interested parties are still interested. They're still reviewing possibilities, and it is still a viable option. However, I'm not at liberty to say more than that right now. Thank you.
Will we know in time?
I'm hoping soon. I'm hoping for a commitment or a refusal very soon.
If you're alluding to using ARPA funds to fix the Brigham Academy, I mean, yeah, but I think what was, they were estimating like $6 million to fix that. You got 170,000. We're not fixing the windows on the first floor kind of thing. It would be phenomenal. And that's what Lance has been working towards, and the town technically, but you know, working hard on finding someone to want to take that on and build it. And there are grant opportunities out there for it, as far as I understand, for, you know,
And that may be a project for the new grant writer.
We voted yes. It'd be paid for by now.
Yes.
yeah, the key is the ARPA funds want to cover.
That
much
the
of
interested
anything.
parties, part of what he's doing right now is looking for grants and looking for sources of income to cover it all. Okay. He obviously doesn't have the money in pocket to do this project. So he's going to have some silent partner, have to have some grants in his pocket, and a wish and a prayer. Okay.
Have you had a structural engineer do a building assessment?
Yes. The report has been made available.
That report up there doesn't talk about a building assessment. That's, you know, the need assessment.
Yes, there isn't a, yes. The feasibility study did cover the need and whether it was feasible for an elderly housing unit to be there, and whether or not, according to this expert, the area would support 20, I forget what the latest number, 22, is it? 22 units.
So Linda, the
And
last time I was in the attic,
The report
the
was
cable that was put in Dick Mealard's time frame has not moved an inch. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was about 5 years ago.
The
So
fascia,
eminence
on the
that
other
wasn't
hand,
there.
the fascia, the brick fascia needs repair. Yeah, and some of the sills.
I hate to be that guy, but are there any ARPA questions?
Thank you.
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. Oh, one more ARPA question.
When you are going to rent too.
That would be in our minutes.
Yep. I don't see where there would be any problem sending.
Well, we haven't discussed it. I did preliminarily say after the summer. I did put that out so that, because, you know, people will be away for.
The request,
But we haven't.
the request she has is if they were turned down, will they be notified when they're due again?
Well, yeah, we will put a notice out on the board. Or during the meeting, there'll be an ARPA section on the website that says that we'll be accepting requests for remaining funds.
Yes.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Have a good night.